Hello, and welcome to the No Wrong Notes podcast, a show hosted by me, Veronica Kokis, holistic voice teacher and singer just like you. Grab a cup of tea, relax, and sit back as we discuss all things singing technique, mindset tips, and more so you can show up as the most confident and creative singer you can be. Hello, and welcome to another episode of No Wrong Notes. This week is a quick and fast episode with some tips on how to survive allergy season. We are in the thick of it, y'all. I don't know, where y'all are at, but here in Richmond, oh man, it is prime pollen season. I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago or so when we were moving things into our new house, where the pollen was absolutely insane. Richmond is like in the top 10 in the United States for worst places to live if you have allergies. And man, it really lives up to the name because we were moving stuff into our new house, and me walking through the grass, bringing things into our house, by the end of the day, my shoes and my lower legs were just covered in pollen. They were yellow. It was absolutely disgusting. And you could look down the street at a group of trees and see pollen haze coming from the trees. So yeah, we are in the thick of it here in Richmond. And, I know in plenty of other places in the United States, it is pollen season. It is allergy season. And this episode was inspired by my students. Many have been struggling with allergies, especially, as I said, here in Richmond. I've had students coming in with a lot of vocal fold swelling, so they'll come in and their voice is like down here because their vocal folds are so swollen. Or students are coming in with congestion, and that's, changing how they're perceiving their voice. So yeah, this episode was inspired by my students. I wanted to provide some tips for dealing with allergies as a singer because, especially for those of us that maybe have gigs or, we go to open mics pretty regularly, you don't always have the opportunity to take a break from singing. So how do you survive with allergies? And let's just talk very quickly about the ways in which your voice can be affected. I mentioned some of these earlier and how it's showing up in my own students, but number one is vocal fold swelling. So allergies can cause vocal fold swelling, which you can test for by singing Twinkle, Twinkle very softly. So if you go, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Even just singing that phrase very softly, it can show you how swollen your vocal folds are, because if they are swollen, chances are when you sing that softly, your voice will break at certain pitches, especially with that big jump. Twinkle, twinkle. When you're doing those big jumps, chances are if you have vocal swelling, your voice will break on one of those jumps. So that's a good test for vocal fold swelling. Another way in which allergies can manifest and how it can affect your voice is, of course, sinus congestion, which affects how you're perceiving your voice when you sing, as I mentioned earlier with my own students who are dealing with this. And what that equates to, of course, is when you're singing, it's an experience of it being really difficult to feel the vibration of your voice, particularly at the front of your face. So with a lot of sinus congestion, you may not even feel much vibration at the front of your face like you maybe normally do when you sing. So the perception of your voice, how you experience it, may change if you have sinus congestion. At least that's something that a lot of my students complain of, and it's something that I've experienced too when I've experienced a lot of congestion. Another way in which your voice can be affected by allergies is through nasal drainage and mucus. So if you've got a lot of postnasal drip that's in response to allergies, that mucus and phlegm, of course, can show up in your voice, which is not a lot of fun. So now that we understand how the voice can be affected, how allergies can show up for the voice, and how it can affect your singing, let's talk about the things that you can do to take care of your voice during allergy season. And some of these things, They might be things that you've heard before. I've certainly talked about them, but they bear repeating. And the first thing is nasal rinsing. This is probably the most important thing you can do for yourself during allergy season. And for those that don't know, when I'm talking about nasal rinsing, I'm talking about using a saline solution to clean your nasal passages. So I think the one that a lot of people know of is the neti pot. A neti pot you can get at the store. You fill that with warm water and a saline solution, and basically you pour the spout of the neti pot in through one nostril, and then you get basically a stream of water through the other nostril. It's pretty disgusting if you think too much about it. I personally don't use the neti pot. I just use a saline spray that's like in an upright bottle. So again, you can use the neti pot, but you can also use an upright saline solution. And that's kind of how nasal rinsing works, is that you just kind of spray it into your nostril and it kind of comes out through the other nostril. It's supposed to come out through the other nostril if you're holding your head over sink. And I actually do this like once or twice daily with, again, the saline spray, that upright bottle. I also use a solution called Xlear. So that is Xlear, because a deviated septum, which I've got, makes it hard for me to breathe in through my nostrils normally. And doing this helps me breathe better. So I do this actually year round, just so I can breathe in through my nose and breathe in clearly through my nose. Because doing this nasal rinsing, it clears your nasal passages. And you can see how this might be useful for allergy season. Again, you don't need a neti pot. The saline sprayer solution is sold in upright bottles at the grocery store or pharmacy like CVS, usually in the allergy section of the store. Again, this is probably one of the best things you can do for your allergies and your voice. It's not just helpful during allergy season either. It's good through like cold and flu season as well. Since when you're doing this, you're regularly cleaning out what your nose is taking in, things like pollen and other pathogens. Like I said, I do this twice a day, and this year has been one of the best years for my allergies. I started doing this daily within the last year or so. And, I typically suffer from allergies around this time of year. I usually get some vocal fold swelling, and, I tend to get some congestion. But since being consistent with rinsing, my allergies have been a lot less. I'm still sneezing here and there, but I haven't noticed as much vocal fold swelling as I normally do at this time of year. So again, the first and most important thing is nasal rinsing. Probably sounds gross, but don't knock it until you try it. The second thing you can do for your allergies is to drink nettle tea, and I will shout this to the moon and back. This thing, or this type of tea, is so helpful for allergies. It's so helpful for singers. Nettle is actually an herb that grows in most yards, especially around Central Virginia. I've seen it like everywhere. It's like it often tends to show up as like purple nettle. So like it tends to have a purple flowering top. So again, this grows in like most yards or in the side of the road here in Central Virginia. I wouldn't pick it up off of the side of the road, but if you even just go in your backyard, you can definitely forage some of that as long as you just clean it well. If you are foraging this in your backyard, definitely look up a picture of what this looks like on the internet before you go out and forage it. Don't just go off of my word. With any herb, if you're foraging, you'll want to make sure you know exactly what it looks like. So that way you're not ingesting something that could potentially kill you. Definitely don't want that happening. So be sure to look up what nettle looks like if you do want to forage it. However, if you don't want to be super hands-on, if you don't want to sort of take that chance of foraging something that you maybe shouldn't forage, you can actually buy nettle tea from Whole Foods or other health food stores. So with that tea in the store, you're getting high quality tea most of the time, or tea that of course has been like with herbs that have been cleaned and, properly baked as well and dehydrated. And with nettle tea, it's useful in that it acts as a natural antihistamine and reduces inflammation. So highly recommend nettle tea. Again, you can forage it if you want. When you're foraging, I mean, look all of this stuff up. I'm not an herbalist. I kind of dabble in some of that, but with foraging and herbalism, you want to make sure what you're looking for, and you want to make sure that you forage correctly, and that you're not taking more than you need. That's a big important aspect with foraging. So again, you can forage it, collect it, and then you can wash it and dehydrate it in the oven. So that's a great way to make it. But of course, you can also buy it at Whole Foods or at a health food store. So highly recommend nettle tea, consuming nettle tea, and pairing that with some local honey as well. And I know that that's like a really kind of well-known fact, is that local honey can also help with allergies. So highly recommend pairing your nettle tea with some local honey, since of course that local honey is going to be, made by local bees. The next thing I'll talk about is allergy meds. Allergy meds can be really helpful, of course, for your allergies, but they can also be very drying to the vocal folds. I don't take allergy meds unless my allergies are really, really bad. I tend to go with Claritin since that works pretty well for me, but it's best to test out different allergy meds to figure out what works best for you. Claritin isn't super drying to my voice, but it may be drying to you and your voice. I've also spoken to singers who swear by Flonase and Allegra, but again, it's up to you and your personal preferences. I would try and find something that helps alleviate your allergy symptoms, but maybe isn't the most drying to your vocal folds. Again, we all respond to these medications differently, so it's worth kind of testing out what works for you. The next thing I'll talk about when it comes to allergy season, as I mentioned, that can cause vocal fold swelling. And this next tip is less of a preventative measure as it is a treatment for that vocal fold swelling. And the thing I'll talk about is SOVTs. SOVTs are going to be your best friend during allergy season, especially if you're suffering from vocal fold swelling. And SOVTs, of course, that stands for semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. Those are things like lip trills, straw exercises, open mouth humming, lip burbles, tongue burbles, any of those kinds of exercises that really equalize the air pressure above and below your vocal folds, so that way they can vibrate consistently. Any of those exercises is going to be great for when you're dealing with vocal fold swelling in the midst of allergy season. So again, highly recommend those kinds of exercises. I've talked about those exercises on the podcast before. I also have videos on Instagram and TikTok where I'm doing some of those exercises. So go ahead and check those out. You can also go on YouTube and just type in SOVT or straw exercise or lip trill to see what those look like and sound like. Again, those are more of a treatment for your vocal fold swelling than they are a preventative measure for allergies, but they're still going to be a useful tool during allergy season. The last thing that I'll talk about is consuming anti-inflammatory food and drink. And I'm kind of hesitant to talk about diet because obviously I'm not a dietitian. I'm not qualified to talk about diet. But I do get a lot of questions from singers like, should I consume dairy? Is it safe to drink coffee as a singer? Things like that. So it's worth addressing. My advice with food and drink as it relates to singing is that every body is different. Every body responds differently to various types of food and drink. And so I'm not going to sit here and say you can never consume dairy as a singer, allergy season or not. I'm never going to sit here and say that. I've seen content online that talks like that or that says those sorts of things, and I personally don't agree. For me, dairy does cause inflammation. I'm vegan, so I don't consume dairy. But when I did cut it out, it made a huge difference for me, but it might make zero difference for someone else, okay? It's all about how you and your body responds to things. But I will say that if you've already got vocal fold swelling from allergies, it's best to consume food or drink that won't make you retain more water or cause more inflammation. If you know that consuming something is going to cause or create a ton of mucus and phlegm for you, maybe refrain from consuming that for a few weeks, at least until like your vocal fold swelling goes down. So yeah, inflammation can look like different things for everybody. Usually it kind of manifests in like retaining water, or like phlegm, like I said, or, like other sorts of things. You can really look this stuff up. But again, everyone is different and responds differently to various food and drink. You have to really decide and find out what works best for you. Because again, even though dairy causes inflammation for me, it may not cause any sort of like inflammation for you. So again, checking in with that, maybe refraining from the food and drink that causes you inflammation, that causes some of that phlegm, that might be a good decision for you. All right, so just to recap, the things that I talked about in this episode that can help with allergies or that might be useful during allergy season is 1, nasal rinsing, 2, drinking nettle tea, 3, allergy meds, of course. Number 4 is using SOVTs to help with vocal fold swelling to help your voice during allergy season. And 5, consuming anti-inflammatory food and drink or refraining from the things that cause inflammation in your own body so that way you're not adding to any inflammation that might already be there from your allergies. And that's it. I would love to hear from you guys. If y'all have any tips or things that I maybe didn't address in this episode that you're like, hey, you should hear this, let me know on Instagram. You can DM me there. If you liked this episode, of course, leave a 5-star rating and review. Would love to hear from you. And if you want to work with me, the Curious Singer membership is getting a facelift this spring. I'm adding a mini course within the membership. So exciting! A mini course that's basically going to walk you through all of the things that I cover in lessons with students. So all of the vocal technique basics that I cover in lessons, like how to produce a clear tone, how to get your voice sounding good, how to be more expressive when you sing, how to understand your vocal range. All of those things are going to be in the mini course, which is now going to be accessed through the Curious Singer membership. You can access it there. And that mini course also includes things like meditations that help you reconnect to your goals, reconnect to yourself. There's a meditation for grounding to sort of help you reconnect with the body. So there are quite a few goodies in that mini course, which will be available through the Curious Singer membership. So if you want to be the first to access that mini course when it drops, you can sign up for the membership today via the link in bio. I'll also be announcing when that is ready through my newsletter, which you can sign up for in the show description. Follow me on social media for more singing tips. Those are also linked in the show description. And in the meantime, happy singing, y'all.